A tale of tragedy, haunting a once happy life. Acts of revenge that has left numerous injured, worst, dead. An uneasy soul that only wanted peace, left unfortunate by chains of demise from her past actions and fate. Today, we will be exploring the origins, as well as some known stories worldwide, from one of Filipinos' folklore beings, the White Lady. A white lady, or caperosa, is a type of female ghost described as the spirit of a woman in a long white dress. They are the spirits of a dead person that can appear to living, some to give warnings about the future, others just plain old spook someone they see. People report different types of sightings of white ladies, ranging from as simple as smoke shaped like a translucent human to something as realistic as solid lifelike forms. White ladies are thought to be seen in rural areas at night, mostly in the isolated parts of the region. They have been reported causes of travelers getting lost and drivers getting injured in these parts, some ending up dead due to panic and fear. They are the epitome stories of tragedy, revenge, despair, and grievance that has been foretold legends among many countries worldwide. Their backstory usually involves something heinous like suicide, murder, betrayal, unrequited love, a disheartening loss, or accidental death. In Mexico, one which perhaps is the most well known to the world is the story of La Llorona, or the Weeping Woman. It is the ghost of a woman appearing across bodies of water, with an eerie cry heard from a distance. In the well known version of the Hispanic American folklore, it is about a young woman who drowned her children after seeing his husband with another woman. Consumed by guilt, she drowned herself as well. Her spirit was left wandering the earth after knowing she could not enter the afterlife. In Brazil, they are known in legend as Dama Branca. In the Brazilian Folklore Dictionary book by Luiz de Câmara Cascudo, the Dama Branca relate to ghosts of young women killed by their own kin for honor. Reason for such honor killings include suspected adultery, sex rejection, or physical abuse. Other variations of the legend foretell a woman who died of childbirth, while another tell of a woman who died of hunger as she was forced to eat the skewered meat of her lover in adultery. In the US, there are tons of stored variations depending on the county or state you are in. One of them is the Lady of White Rock Lake of Dallas, Texas. The story is that it is the ghost of a young woman who was one of the several victims that drowned from a boating accident in the same lake sometime in the 1930s. She appears to travelers wearing a 1930s style dress soaked in water, wading along East Lother Drive at night. She hitches a ride from unsuspecting travelers and requests to be taken home to Gaston Avenue in Dallas, only to disappear before reaching the point and leaving the seat water drenched. In Russia, there's a little known legend of the Maidens of Ule. The story was of a young woman who did not want to marry a rich man, so she kept running away from him. When she was caught, her husband imprisoned her in a yurt, not being able to do anything but sing. After being locked for 20 days, she managed to escape and meet a few people along the road. She was then taken to a wedding and sang for the guests, only to commit suicide after the event, knowing she won't be able to go anywhere without being imprisoned again. After her death, she became a spirit in unrest and eventually joined other spirits of women who shared the same fate. They were collectively known as the Maidens of Ule. In the United Kingdom, The Old Mill Hotel in Motherwell is believed to be haunted by a white lady. The story is of a woman that was to be married in that hotel. On their wedding day, the man did not come and the woman drew in rage. Apparently, her fiancé was beaten up by another man who wanted her badly. The woman, in anguish and rage, ran to the rail tracks nearby, crying. When a train passed by, she jumped into the speeding vehicle, her body getting dragged before plummeting to the ground to her death. Her grave is near the Old Mill Hotel, buried under a tree, and her spirit has been haunting the living to claim revenge for the supposedly happy life that was taken away from her. In the Philippines, one cannot speak about the White Lady without accompanying its name to the famous Balete Drive. While generally people tell tales of seeing white ladies just about everywhere, the famed Balete Drive in New Manila, Quezon City has its legend sealed into the Filipino folklore as a primary spot to find one. This street, as it has name bestowed, is famous for its range of huge and creepy-looking balete trees stretched across a now paved road of more than a kilometer in length. In Filipino lore, balete trees are believed to be home for mystical beings and creatures due to its massive trunk and thousands of suspended long twigs, giving an eerie impression and anxiety that it might just slither and pull you within any second. According to legend, the White Lady story started in the late 40s to early 50s. It started with a story of a woman that was run over by a taxi cab in the middle of the night. The driver was so scared of what happened that he decided to bury the body of the woman underneath the ground beside a big balete tree. From here then on, the ghost of the woman has been ruthlessly hunting taxi drivers and passers-by to seek revenge against her murderer and finally gain peace. One variation of the story is that the woman was a student of the University of the Philippines in Diliman, a well-known university in the country, and was sexually assaulted and abused by the taxicab driver she rode to get home. After the gruesome doing, her body was dumped and buried along Balete Drive. Her spirit constantly roams Balete Drive in hopes of finding her murderer. It is rumored that she appears to travelers of the street at around 12 midnight to 3 a.m. She is believed to be the most hostile to taxi drivers, but anybody brave enough to walk the streets alone at these times are often a target for her scare. Another variation of the legend is that the woman is a resident of one of the sentient ancestral houses along the street. The woman was abused and killed by members of her own family, and now she shows up to passers-by, demanding help and justice for the tragedy that had befallen her. The legend of the White Lady has become so popular and iconic in the Filipino culture that it actually inspired a few directors to create movies based on it, especially during the late 80s to early 2000s. In 2005, there was a proposal by a barangay official from where the Balete Drive is region to utilize the urban legend of the White Lady. The proposal was to officially declare the street as haunted and make use of the road for Halloween parties and other spooky events. It was an attempt to boost tourism in the area, but eventually, the proposal was scrapped and never reached the barangay ordinance. It is an important bit to note that all foretold backstory of the Balete Drive White Lady was rumored to be just some concept from the creative mind of a reporter in the 1950s. Decades had already passed, but this was never debunked about who this reporter was, from what organization he came from, and why did he came up with this. To this day, the tale of the White Lady in Balete Drive lives on to the minds of the Filipino people. While Filipinos are fond of the White Lady along Balete Drive, there have been hundreds of stories told of both apparitions and human-like behavior elsewhere in the country. Do not be fooled by the idea that white ladies can only be found on Balete Drive. They are ethereal beings that can exist almost everywhere, anytime they decide to scare or cry for help. Almost every town, not just in rural provinces, but in urbanized areas as well, have countless tales of white lady that shivers the storyteller when being discussed. Some tell stories of a barely visible chunk of smoke floating in the air, shaping up like a woman. Some tell stories of a faceless woman in white, effortlessly gliding in the ground, transparent enough to see her in detail, but translucent enough to see past her body. Some tell stories of a completely visible woman mistaken as a lost person and can actually speak up and cry for help. It is also important to note that there had been stories of a black lady, a black dressed woman version of the white lady. While the idea of how they are perceived varies, they mainly address to one general description: a woman in a long dress, seeking justice or revenge.